At 3:17 a.m., something tapped my bedroom wall, and my cat hissed at the same empty corner again. I'd moved in a month before. Small place. Top floor, end unit. I was fine with it. Quiet, cheap, no roommates. It was me and Ted. He's a big gray cat, 6 years old, lazy except when he isn't. I got him after a bad breakup, and I can't explain it better than he made my place feel like mine. He started with the corner on the second week. It was the dead corner of the living room, between the hall and the window. There was nothing there, just beige walls, baseboard heater, a thrift store lamp. He'd sit in the doorway and watch it. Then he'd stand and hiss, one sharp hiss, and settle again like he was daring something to move. I talked to him like an idiot. Dust? You staring at dust? I waved my hand through the air. See? Nothing. I cleaned first. Pulled the lamp, vacuumed, wiped the walls, baseboard, took a broom handle and pushed into the corner. Nothing scurried out. No crumbs. I set traps, old school little snap traps with peanut butter, along the baseboard. No hits. No droppings. I moved the lamp across the room. Same behavior. He still faced that spot. He would not turn his back to it. If he sat in the room, he sat so he could see it. It felt colder over there. I told myself, old building, weird draft, whatever. I held my hand out and swore I felt it on my wrist. I checked the window seals, the outlet. Draft snake under the door. No change. I took him to the vet because I wanted it to be anything else. She checked his eyes, ears, teeth. He's healthy, she said. He might be anxious in a new place. Try pheromone spray. I bought the spray. I sprayed. It smelled like nothing. He still stared. He still hissed. That night the tap came. Hard to describe. Like a finger tap. Not the pipes. I have noisy pipes. Not heat ping. A knuckle knock. 1. Pause. 1. I sat up and my heart went out of rhythm. I grabbed my phone and hit record on the camera, pointed past my feet at the corner, because if something was there, I wanted to be done guessing. The screen showed gray grain and the shape of the lamp across the room. Ted was a shadow ball at the end of the bed, standing very upright, tail puffed. He growled low. I whispered, "Do it again," to no one. The wall didn't tap again. I filmed 40 seconds. When I played it back later, the video was boring. The audio wasn't. Somewhere around the 10th second, after the sheets rustled, there was a breath. Not mine. Not a sigh. It was close to the phone and not at the phone at the same time, like someone breathed in right against a cup. I listened to it 3 times. I told myself fan noise. I didn't have a fan on. After that, I started testing things like it was homework. I got a cheap temp gun online. I started writing down times. The hissing would begin after midnight. It ramped up to 2. It peaked right around 3:17. I don't know why 3:17. It just kept being that time when something happened. The cold spot near the corner would drop 5 degrees lower than the rest of the wall. Sometimes 7. It felt like a door left open to winter. I moved the furniture. I pulled the couch across that section, pushed the bookcase into the corner so it was flush. It looked stupid. Ted sat in the doorway and kept watching the edge of the case. When it hit 3:17 that night, he hissed at the bookcase. He didn't blink. A tap came, and I heard the book titles tremble against each other, the tiniest chitter like glass teeth. On the 3rd night of this, I called my friend Jess. She likes debunking stuff. She's the one who brings sage to parties and then explains smoke detectors. She rolled her eyes at me on the phone but came over. She brought a sencha tin and we made tea and she laughed at my notes. "You're writing like a ghost hunter," she said. "It's a corner. Corners are colder." We sat on the rug at midnight with Netflix on mute and waited. At 1 o'clock, nothing. At 2 o'clock, Ted got up from behind her knees and stared. Jess kept talking. Buildings settle. Neighbors bang. Your cat needs stimulation. At 3:15, she rubbed her arms and said, "You keep it cold in here?" "It's not cold," I said. I checked the thermostat. It said 70. I put my hand out. The corner breathed out cold. At 3:17 on the dot, the lamp flickered. Not the strobe bulbs do. It dragged sideways like the light got pulled. Jess saw it. Her mouth opened and didn't do anything. Ted went stiff. The tap came from the wall and I swear the air pressed out. A little push, like someone nudged from the other side. Jess whispered, "Nope," and stood. "I can't do this," she said. She grabbed her coat. Her hands shook in a way I never saw. She kissed my cheek and said, "Come stay with me," and glanced at the corner like a person tries not to look at a cop. She didn't look back when she left. I told myself it was wires. I checked fuses. I changed bulbs. I bought a cheap camera and stuck it on the bookshelf. It had night vision and notifications for motion. I aimed it where Ted stared. I went to bed early and left the house lights on. I placed a line of salt along the baseboard because the internet said salt does something. I felt dumb. I did it anyway. The camera woke me with a ping at 3:14. It sent me 3 short clips. In the first, Ted sits dead center and looks at the corner. His head jerks to the left, then to the right, like he's tracking someone walking. Nothing shows. Just empty doorway after empty doorway. The motion boxes follow nothing as it crosses the hall. I watched the second clip. He follows it back. He growls under his breath. The third clip is him backing up, like he's guarding. His tail hits the coffee table, and the table moves an inch. The little marble coaster on it skids and stops right at the edge and doesn't fall. I slept on the couch that night with the hallway light on. Didn't change anything. 3:17 came. Tap. Cold breath on my wrists. The next day I bought sage because Jess left it in my head. I lit it and walked around and said the usual lines that people say. "This is my place. Leave." I coughed. Smoke got in my eyes. The corner smelled the same. The cold spots stayed. Ted watched me and made a chirp like a question mark. I called my landlord. Told him it felt drafty. He said he'd send someone to check the window next week. I didn't have a week to be dumb about this. I tried to block the corner. I put a chair in there and stacked boxes on the chair. I draped a blanket over the whole mess. It looked like a kid fort. I thought I could trick myself into forgetting it. That night, the blanket moved. Not a lot. It pulled inward toward the wall, a twitch, like something tugged and then let go. The boxes leaned. Ted launched off the couch with a sound I never heard from him. I grabbed him and said, "It's okay," but he didn't take his eyes off the blanket. I didn't sleep. I sat with coffee until morning. I left for work and came back dreading the door. The blanket had slid down the chair and lay on the floor like a puddle. The boxes were tilted but didn't fall. It would have been funny if it was anything else. I found the old neighbor on the stairs that night. He's the quiet guy from 4B with the tiny dog that always wears a sweater. He looked at the grocery bags under my eyes and said, "You look beat." "Do you know anything about those walls?" I said it too fast. He got a careful look. "What about them?" "I keep getting drafts," I said, "and because I am not good at pretending," I added, And noises. Late. He nodded slow. He stared toward the ceiling like he was reading a memory. "You're in 4D, right?" I said yes. He said, "Girl in there before you had a kid." "Little boy." They had trouble with that corner. He said it like he hadn't meant to say it. "What kind of trouble?" I asked. "Like mold?" He shook his head. She moved. Fast. He scratched his dog's ear and then said, "Sorry, not my business." He went inside. I stood in the hall and felt my stomach get tight and small. I went back in and sat on the floor by the corner, down where the baseboard met the wall. I pressed my face close. It smelled like dust and old paper. There was a hairline crack along the paint, a diagonal line I hadn't noticed. When I pressed, the paint flexed. I ran my nail along it and felt the edge. I got a butter knife and pried a little. A chip popped free. And then another. Behind the paint was drywall. Behind that was something else. I pressed harder and a flake broke. A sliver fell out, and something small rolled into view and stopped against my thumb. It was a marble. Old glass. Cloudy red with a white ribbon inside. Scratched. Not shiny. The kind kids keep in jars. I rolled it in my palm. It was cold. Colder than my fingers. I don't know why that made my chest flip, but it did. Ted sniffed it and sneezed and stared at the hole. I wanted to put the marble back where it came from, but there wasn't an obvious place. I set it on the coffee table in a bottle cap. That felt wrong too. That night, everything leaned. It's the only way I can explain it. The frames on the wall, the lamp, the plant. Like the corner got heavy. The room tilted toward it. I put a level on the shelf because I wanted to see numbers. The bubble wandered and then steadied. Lights didn't flicker. They smudged. The edges of things were soft and then snapped back while I watched. Ted planted himself between me and the corner and didn't move. Not a statue. A wall. He made a sound like a little engine. Not a purr. It was deeper. He was angry. He blew air through his nose and bared his teeth. He kept his body low like he was bracing for a wave. 3:17 hit like a mark. I didn't look at the clock. I felt it. The push came. Not big. Enough to make my knees go wobbly. The air moved toward me from the paint, like a breath out that didn't end. The marble on the table rattled in its cap and spun, then stopped with the white ribbon facing me. The blanket on the chair shivered and slid more. The salt line I'd poured was clumped and wet. I swear it was wet, like it had drawn water from the wall. "No," I said out loud, like an idiot saying no to weather. "You can't do this." The only thing that listened was the cat. He stepped forward. He arched his back. He put himself in the space between me and the corner and he hissed, long and hard, and then he looked at me. He didn't blink. It felt like a question. It felt like, "Are we staying?" I grabbed the cat carrier. It was under the sink. I hated the carrier. He hated the carrier. He walked into it without fighting. I will remember that until I die. He walked in on his own. I threw clothes into a bag. I took my wallet, the spare keys, the charger. I put the marble in my pocket because leaving it felt wrong and taking it felt worse, and those were my choices, and I had to pick one. I picked up the camera and the temp gun and then I stopped. It all felt stupid. I didn't need data. I needed out. The lamp flickered again, that sideways drag like a bad dream. I walked backward toward the door, keeping that corner in my eye because I knew not to turn my back too. I don't know how I knew that. I locked the door with the chain shaking in my hands. We left at 3:29 a.m. The elevator took an hour that was really a minute. I got in the car with my bag and the carrier, and I put the carrier in the passenger seat. He meowed once, like, finally, and then he settled. He pressed his face against the bar so I could scratch his nose with one finger at red lights. He started purring, not the angry one, his normal one, the soft buzz he does when he's happy and half asleep. I cried in a way I don't do. Not sobbing, just water that wouldn't stop. We drove to my sister's house on the other side of town because she keeps a spare room for holidays and sometimes me. We slept all morning on her couch. He slept with his back to me for once. He never does that. He trusted that nothing was behind us. I broke my lease. It cost money I didn't have. I didn't go back alone. Jess came with me in daylight. We packed fast. I kept one eye on the corner, which looked like paint and drywall and nothing else. We didn't talk about it. We didn't say the time. We didn't take the lamp. She left before dark, because we both agreed only idiots do trips at night now. The new place was small and upstairs and smelled like floor cleaner. I checked the corners before I signed. That's a thing I do now. We moved in with the help of 2 friends and a truck. I put the marble in a drawer, then took it out of the drawer, then put it on the windowsill, then moved it to the top of the fridge. It didn't feel right anywhere. I ended up keeping it in my pocket the first week, like a worry coin I didn't want but couldn't throw away. The first night was quiet. The second night was quiet. On the third, I woke up out of nowhere and knew what time it was without looking. Ted's head lifted. He didn't hiss. He just looked toward the bedroom door. I turned my head toward the clock because I had to check if my gut was right. 3:17. It was like someone had whispered it in my ear. I lay very still. The air didn't get cold. It went thin, like a held breath. The hallway light under the door stayed steady. No tap. Nothing obvious. Just a sense that the corner of this new place, the one by the closet, had a second too much of itself. I could have woken my sister to ask if I was crazy, but I didn't live with her anymore. It was me and the cat again. I felt the old panic stand up in me. Leave, it said. Drive. People move. People keep moving. I didn't want to keep moving. I didn't want to teach him that comfort was someplace we abandon. Ted got off the bed and sat by the door. He didn't do the wall guard thing. He did his normal sit. He looked back at me and meowed once, like he was making sure I was paying attention. I slipped out of bed. I picked him up. He wrapped his paws around my arm and hung there, heavy and warm and very alive. We walked to the closet corner. It was a normal corner. Paint, scuff, a little nick near the baseboard where movers scraped it. The floor wasn't cold, but the hair on my arm stood up and I could hear my own heart in my ears. I took the marble from the top of the fridge. I don't know why. I held it. It warmed against my palm. I stood there and I felt stupid, and then I felt angry. Not flailing angry. The kind where you decide. I said, quiet, no. You don't get him. You don't get me. You can stand there and breathe, but you do not get to live in my house. The room was just a room. Nothing dramatic. The clock flipped to 3:18 and I heard the fridge hum and a car go by on the street. Ted put his chin against my shoulder for a second and then pushed off to the floor and wound around my legs like he does when I take too long in the kitchen. He blinked slow at the corner. Then he turned away. He turned his back. He walked to the bed and flopped on my pillow like he was making a point. I didn't chase any sign past that. I stood a little longer. I thought I caught a breath, the idea of one, like the memory of someone standing too close. I held the marble up and then put it down on the floor by the baseboard. I didn't push it into a crack. I set it there, on the paint, Like you leave something at a grave not because you believe in graves, but because you loved the person. "You can have that," I said, and I went back to bed. I slept. Not deep. Enough. Morning came, and the marble was where I left it. The corner was a corner. Ted ate and wanted sun, and we found a warm square by the window together. The day felt like a day. That night I looked at the clock at 3:12 and told myself I would not sit up and wait 5 minutes like a lunatic. I didn't. I tucked my arm over him and listened to him purr and felt him breathe and fell asleep sometime between one breath and the next. It has not tried to push since. Maybe it can't make a door in walls I don't give it. Maybe it will try again when I forget to watch. Maybe it only needed me to say what mattered, which was simple. If something stands in my corner again, I'll stand between it and him. That's the whole plan. Sometimes at night, right before I sleep, I hear something like a breath where there is no mouth. I don't leave. I put my hand on the rise and fall of his ribs and say, quietly, "No," and then I turn my back. He turns his too. And we stay. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. It really helps the channel. And if you're not too scared yet, check out one of the other stories waiting for you. See you in the next one.